part 2 of putting new shoes on old bones. So stay tuned. Guys, I apologize. It's been so long since I posted last. It's been about almost 2.5 weeks since I've worked on this truck, and really even since I stepped foot in this shop. I've just had so much going on. If you remember the last episode, and you can go back and watch it by clicking this link above, I basically got it all tore apart on the driver's side, got everything off, and was trying to figure out how to kind of put everything back together again when the honeydew list came and attacked me, and I had to go mow. Well, since then, it's just been one thing after the other as far as just kind of little chores that I've had to do around the house and just busyness, just work and you know, stuff like that. So it's been a really long time since I've been able to get back out here to the shop. So I'm excited to get out to the shop today and get to part 2 of putting new shoes on old bones. Here's kind of a close-up shot of where I ended up last time. I had the hub assembly put onto the rotor, to the new rotor. That's the old rotor right over there. Had it taken off the axle shaft. This right here, I would say is kind of where I'm getting stuck at, per se. I'm not necessarily stuck, but I figured it would go kind of back on real smoothly as far as that hub assembly and going into that axle shaft, into the spline. And it's just not working. It's one of those things where you really need like 3 hands to get that done, because that's a pretty big chunk of metal, and you're having to hold it up with 2 hands while you're sliding it on that center axle spline there, that axle shaft. And typically what ends up happening is kind of the way you see it right now. Hopefully this will zoom in good. See how it's kind of angling down? It's not necessarily centered in that axle or that hub assembly. Basically, you're trying to get it on these splines right there, as you can see. Hopefully you can see that on the detail, and get the splines lined up with the center of that spline on that hub. Well, if it's tilted down a little bit, it just will not go on as easily as you thought. And the problem, again, like I said, you're holding this big chunk of metal here, and there's really nothing else you can do as far as getting that that shaft to be a little bit more level so it slides on there. So you're going to need a 3rd hand, possibly even a 4th hand, and so today I got my daughter coming out to help me with this, and hopefully this goes on pretty smooth. We'll see. Okay, I think I showed you this in the last video, but what you want to do is, because that axle shaft is going to turn on you, you want to put a pair of vice grips. That's a pair of 9-inch vice grips on that axle shaft. So that comes all the way through to here, and it keeps this from turning when you're trying to line up those splines.
Okay, right. Is that it?
Yeah. Okay, so I just need you to stick that in right there.
Oh, right there? Okay.
And keep it kind of up. Just put some pressure on it.
Is that good enough?
Yeah.
I'm kind of pushing down on you.
Okay, leave it alone. Okay, now Alright guys, we got it on. That was went a little easier than I thought. Thankfully I had a 3rd pair of hands here.
3rd?
You're 3rd.
A 2nd.
1, 2, 3rd.
No, that's not how it works.
That's right. My daughter is right. I'm an idiot. 2nd pair of hands. I was trying to say 3rd hand, but 2nd pair. Okay. Alright, so my daughter's smarter than me. And then secondly, get yourself a hammer. Hopefully you have something with a little bit of a rubber end on it that you can tap on. And as you saw me doing that, you notice what I did was I just used my left hand to put behind the dust cover and push up on this rotor. You can see it moving there. And then I hit the bottom of the actual hub assembly, and it kind of allows you to get some movement on that and keep it straight. It's not all the way on, but obviously when you put this washer and the hub nut on, it's going to cinch that down even closer. Okay, another thing that you want to do before you get all this put back together is, you see the face of this rotor both back and front, especially when you got a lot of grease on your hands If you can wear some clean gloves when you're doing that, that's great. But you're bound to always get grease and muck and stuff all over the face of these rotors. Make sure you clean this off, and this is a good point to do that. It still turns fairly easy. It's not all the way snugged back onto the axle, and you can get to the backside right here with the caliper off. So if you take a rag and just kind of set it right there and turn the rotor, you're able to get the backside, and of course you can get to the front side at this stage too. But take some brake cleaner, get you a rag, brake clean that off, make sure the rotors don't have any contaminants on the face, and you won't have any stopping issues once you get this all buttoned back up. Alright guys, so again I got the hub all cleaned off, I got the washer and the hub nut back on, and all I'm basically going to do now is just use that washer and nut to help me cinch that hub all the way back down, or the rotor all the way back down on the hub assembly there. So just get yourself your impact driver, air gun, whatever it is. I'm not looking to torque this thing crazy. I'm just trying to get it a little bit further back down, make sure it's fully seated on that on the hub assembly itself. Okay, so you can see now that this is fully seated back. You got about a quarter of an inch clearance between the dust guard and the actual rotor itself. I like to go ahead and just make sure it spins freely, so it looks like it's really spinning really nice and smooth. I've got this axle shaft is protruding out a little bit past the nut and the protector for the threads there. Now if you go back to my last video, whenever I was taking all this off, remember you've got this assembly that comes off of this. You can kind of see the brief outline of where it is on the metal there. It's basically the offset for that dually wheel, or the actual hub kind of offset. It's basically like a big wheel spacer, if it makes sense to you that way. And I was able to gain access to this bolt, or excuse me, this nut and this washer with that whole entire assembly on, because it sticks out to about right here. Right now what I'm doing, when I'm obviously putting it all back together, is I've got that off. It's real easy to just get that nut on. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit more pressure on this, make sure it's seated really well, and then basically start with a caliper. I'm going to go ahead and put the caliper on while I have all of this part off, get the brake pads on, get everything all prepped, and then start basically building back out that wheel spacer. Alright, here's a look at the when you open up the caliper box. This is basically what you're going to find. You're going to find the caliper. Then you've got the couple of bolts that are actually the spacer bolts that are going to actually attach it to the caliper arm. There's the new Extreme Power Stop brake pads, and then if you when you get this package, you see all these O-rings and things like that and gaskets. This actually allows you to rebuild any calipers that you have. So if you've got stock calipers, this comes in the kit when you get brake pads, or at least it came in this kit, and allows you to kind of rebuild these things. If you have that talent or time, or if the caliper's in really good shape. Alright, another little trick is go ahead and turn your wheels to the opposite side. So if you're working on the driver's side, turn your wheels towards the passenger side, and vice versa. You can see as I'm sitting on straight now, you can see that rotor and everything's been turned. It just gives you a little better access, easier access behind there, because you're going to be doing some work. You're going to be putting the brake line back on. You're going to be putting the screws back in, and you're going to be adjusting the rotor, sometimes with shims, sometimes they're self-adjusting depending on what your system is. But it just turning your wheel obviously brings this back end of the rotor and everything out this way, and it just makes it a lot easier to work on. If you got some grease in your shop, go ahead and grab it. See these shoulders on this bracket here? This is what the brake caliper itself floats back and forth on. So they're self-adjusting. It's a self-adjusting caliper. And so it floats back and forth, and these shoulders need to be rust free. I think that's what happened in my case. these shoulders and the caliper kind of got gunked up with road debris or rust or something like that, and it caused that caliper to not adjust in or out once you applied the brakes, and therefore you got the brake pad coming in contact with the rotor quite a bit. It was still allowing it to go, but it was dragging on this rotor a lot, and it heated up and cracked this rotor. I'm pretty sure that's what happened. So just grab your grease here, put a little bit on your finger, and then just make sure you coat these shoulders to where they don't get all rusty. It just prevents that from happening in the future, and it's just a little bit of preventative maintenance that you can do right now to make sure that doesn't happen again. Okay, so there's the caliper back on the ground with the brake pads actually in it. This side just slips on, goes over these there's two little holes on the caliper itself that it just slides onto. This one's a little bit more complicated in the fact that it's kind of got this little flange, or this little spring right here, bent spring. And typically the way I like to do it is I'll put the bottom in first, and then just using your hand, your thumb, just pop it up in there in place. Now, you are dealing with a situation most of the time these pistons are a little bit advanced. So again, I hope you can see that. It's got a little bit of, probably about it's almost like a ½ inch out from the body, the housing of that cylinder. And so in some cases, you're going to need to compress this back in order to, once you get this on, obviously you see that space there, it's only a couple of fingers thick now, and then you've got to go over that rotor. In my case, I've got enough space that it's been compressed enough that I think if I can work at it, I can get this over. But really what I've done, I think they make tools for this, but I don't have my other one sitting around here. What I just use is basically a C-clamp to get in there and just push that piston back in. It's going to be a little bit of resistance, and so using a C-clamp tends to help a little bit on that standpoint. But again, if you're having problems fitting it on, it's because that piston is advanced. And you need to push that piston back into the housing. Okay, so I got the caliper on. It's seated. It's sitting on both the shoulders. Everything looks really good. It's seated down. I used my hammer to kind of beat it into place a little bit. A little bit of persuasion helps sometimes. Then all I basically have done now is you come on the back here and you've got this little sleeve and this bolt. So put the sleeve in first, push it all the way through, and then kind of try to get it as far down as you can with your finger, and then bring this bolt, and you're searching for that hole on the other side. Now you may have to move your caliper around a little bit to get it. I got the top one in fairly easy, but you may have to move that caliper around just a little bit, kind of get it in place. There we go, I think got it. Once you find that hole, just screw that in and cinch these down pretty good. Make sure before you get back in the, put everything back together, make sure your rotor still turns freely. Obviously there's going to be a little pressure on this cylinder coming out. Once you get the brake lines hooked up, they'll basically self-center themselves. And again, of course, you got the brake line. Don't forget about that. So you got the brake line and the brake fluid that you're going to have to put back on. And when I took out this this cap, or this plug that was in that caliper, it came with the 2 copper washers. Make sure those go back on too to help you prevent any leaks. Okay guys, I've got it all put back together here and got everything cinched down, tightened down. Everything looks pretty good. I'm going to put the wheel on now. One of the things I do when I'm putting a wheel on, especially one that's as heavy as the one I'm fixing to put on, is I always put down a little cheater bar right here below the actual wheel hub itself, kind of in the middle. If you can see it there, I'm kind of outside the shot there. But that way I'll roll the tire on top of, let me see if I can get this. I'll roll the tire on top of that cheater bar, and then when I'm trying to get it centered on the studs there, it makes it a little easier, gives you some leverage to hold up on, and you just basically just pull up on that handle and it helps you line them up. Especially on tires that heavy, it comes in handy. So I think I've got the right height on my jack, and I'm going to put this wheel on and we'll go from there. All right, guys. So I got the got Old Bones at least half the project done. I got the driver's side calipers and rotors and brake pads all done. I still need to bleed the brakes, but I'm not going to do that obviously because I still have the passenger side to do. That gives you a shot of her outside. She hadn't been outside in a really long time. She's been cooped up in this shop. Now, for without further ado, one of the special things that I asked you guys to do was give me votes on whether I should put the graphics on the fender. Now here, they are not here, but I was holding them up on last time, but basically a big 4x4 sticker goes right there on the fender to make it look stock. And the result was thumbs up. More votes came in to put the graphics on versus not, so I will be putting the graphics on. But as you can tell, it's a beautiful Oklahoma evening. It's real windy. I think it's supposed to storm here tonight maybe, and I need to get inside and get some other honeydews done before I get that done. So unfortunately on this episode I will not be putting the graphics on, but at some point in the very near future you will see that on, and I'll make sure that you guys get to see the whole thing. Alright guys, so thanks for watching another episode of Epic Cars. I got my hands dirty today, which is a great thing. I haven't been able to do that in a couple of weeks, and obviously got Old Bones outside as I just showed you. And we'll work on that passenger side as soon as we can get some extra time. But this was a fun project for me in the fact that it was a learning project. I've never done this on a dually before, and so there's, like I said, there's some additional components that you had to mess with as far as, you know, the wheel extenders and just things like that. Guys, until next time, I apologize for the length and the time that it took for me to post. I am going to be doing a new kind of episode every once in a while, which is called 5 in 10. And basically what I'm going to be doing there is giving you guys access to kind of the way I think about cars, and taking a certain segment, whether it's cars that are, you know, 3,000 and under, 5,000 and under, 10,000 under, you know, 15,000 under, and just kind of go up in segment groups, and get on Facebook Marketplace, Auto Tempest, Craigslist, you know, all the different auto traders, you know, things like that, and pick out 5 cars in 10 minutes that if it were my money, those are the cars I would buy. And so we'll go into, you know, kind of a theme as far as, hey, I'm just looking for good dependable transportation back and forth to college or something like that, or to a job, all the way up to maybe you were getting into entry-level collecting cars. You know, what cars would I pop on? For what price and why, more importantly. And so we'll talk about 5 cars in 10 minutes and kind of give you an insight on how that does. I don't know about the rest of you, but if I can't sleep in the middle of the night or something like that, obviously I think about work, I think about family, I think about those kind of things, the same stress that everybody else has. But there are some things, sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and I just need to just not think about anything that's too consequential. And what I mean by that is flipping through Facebook Marketplace and looking at cars is a very easy pastime for me. It doesn't take a lot of thought process to do this. It's kind of just me zoning in and looking at things, and it actually relaxes me. I don't know if I'm weird or if I'm like anybody else, but looking at cars, figuring out the value of cars, figuring out why I would choose this one over that one, even in a hypothetical standpoint, is fun to me. And it's something that I do in a pastime. It's a hobby. And so I'm going to kind of let you into my brain on these segments. So 5 in 10 is coming up in the next, probably a week or two. I'll do my first episode, and hopefully that offers some insight to anybody out there that's looking for a car on things to look for. And guys, there are some really good deals out there for $5,000 or less, all over the place. As I mentioned in the very beginning, I got this truck for $4,000, and now it took me some searching. But I got it done, and it turned out to be one of the perfect purchases that I've ever made. I've only got, you know, $5,500 into this car. It's a very dependable daily driver. I can tow with it. I can use it for a construction job. I can carry the dogs in the back. It's got AC. It's got power windows, power locks, power seat. It's got everything to, you know, allow me to go, you know, A to B in comfort. But I can also, it's 4-wheel drive. It's dually. You know, guys, you can find vehicles out there to make them fit. So guys, stay tuned for the next episode. 5 and 10's coming out, and then I'm not going to bore you with the other side of the brake job on this deal. You saw what it's on that side. All you got to do is reverse it, do it on this side. This will be done in a few, probably a few days or so. I'll get that done. But guys, God bless. Thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button, and I really appreciate your support. Take care.